in his early years, there was an element. I've already kind of talked about the different groups in a class, but there was an element of that George Beakley had arranged. It was called the AFID program. It was military officers, Air Force officers, who came to ASU to get a degree. At that time, the military was requiring their pilots to have degrees. And if they didn't, they were sent to ASU and maybe other places, I don't know. But ASU was a desirable place because at that time we had 2 Air Force bases. There were opportunities for them to fly. And these individuals, their career was on the line. They were going to get that degree in this time period no matter what, because if they didn't, they were out. And so they came, and there weren't, there'd be maybe 3 or 4 of them in a given class of 20 or 30, but they set the tone. They could not be beat as far as working hard and being involved. They were also more mature. They were older than the typical student. And they lifted the levels of classes. That, of course, as government programs do, went away when the program stopped. But that element was lost. And then there was just this general feeling of the students that has changed. I think we all see the numbers in the press about where this elementary and secondary education of the United States is compared to other parts of the world. Not all students fit that, but many of them do. And so you have a general, I don't want to say dumbing down, indifference is maybe a better word. They're not turned on by learning. They're not excited by things as much. And it's hard to change that. And I think many of the faculty here and elsewhere, we're certainly not alone. I told you about my friend, my friend Paul Neitzel, and we talk about that very thing at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is considered an elite school. There's just an element that is not really interested in learning, and we're talking about a subject like engineering, which was difficult, demanding, and you need this commitment by the students, and you don't get that anymore.
Who were some of those lab people that were very helpful?
Jim Haywood was just the greatest guy in the world. He was an old Navy chief, and you had to let him chew on you occasionally if you did something that he viewed as stupid, but I didn't mind that. I mean, he was always helpful to me. I remember one time I was working on a project with a student for what was then air research, and we were doing some experiments, and we because of we needed a special facility, and it was in one of the civil engineering labs that's now long since gone. But we were going to work on a weekend because that was the only time we could get in, and he gave us a key to his machine shop so that we could have access to any tools that we might need to get this experiment going. Now that was just, I didn't ask for that, but he gave it to us, and I thought that for Jim that was a big thing. Jim was a great guy. He had a lot of enemies, but he was just doing his job, and he did it very well.
And so I went through the engineering corps, and Ted Allen, he was throwing erasers.
Yeah.
Ed Wallace I had for partial differential equations, but Jim Turnbow was a guy that was set the standard for discipline.
Jim Turnbow was the only professor I've ever known that could draw a perfect circle freehand. His lectures, I used to, occasionally as the circumstances would allow it, you'd find yourself coming into a class after a Jim Turnbow or somebody like that. And so you could see the lecture. And Jim's were always just, they were just amazing. Yeah, Jim was a good guy. Jim was one of the teachers. You know, that's what he did. He was a teacher, but he was an excellent teacher, and he required performance from the students. I don't think you can do that today. I just do not. I mean, I just don't think the atmosphere is the same, and you're more apt to be criticized than you are congratulated for what you've been able to accomplish with the students. Yeah, Jim Turnbow, Dick Ditzworth, Warren Rice, these are names from that era. These people are...
Right, so